And here with me now in the studio, Wayne LaPierre of the National Rifle Association. Mr. LaPierre, welcome back to the program.
Thanks, David. Good to be with you.
So, the legislative moment has arrived here on Capitol Hill. What's going to happen with gun safety legislation?
Well, I mean, you just heard Mayor Bloomberg, but he's going to find out this is a country of the people, by the people, and for the people. And he can't spend enough of his $27 billion to try to impose his will on the American public. They don't want him in their restaurants. They don't want him in their homes. They don't want him telling them what food to eat. They sure don't want him telling them what self-defense firearms to own. And he can't buy America. He's so reckless in his terms of his comments on this whole gun issue. He talks about guns buzzing. He's talking about machine guns. None of these guns are machine guns.
But is he going to have an impact politically? He wants to be a counterweight to you. He wants to go into these races in 2014 and spend along with you. Are you preparing to arm politically your people who agree with you, candidates and whatnot, in 2014?
We have people all over, millions of people, sending us $5, $10, $15, $20 checks saying, stand up to this guy that says we can only have 3 bullets, which is what he said. Stand up to this guy that says ridiculous things like the NRA wants firearms with nukes on them. I mean, it's insane, the stuff he says.
All right, but let me ask you about background checks, because the mayor referred to the polling. 90% of Americans want universal background checks. Here is this survey from Quinnipiac this week. Among those people who own guns, 85% support. Are you thwarting the will of the American people by standing in opposition to universal background checks?
No, not at all, because here's the thing. The whole thing, universal checks, is a dishonest premise. There's not a bill on the Hill that provides a universal checks. Criminals aren't going to be checked. They're not going to do this. The shooters in Tucson, in Aurora, in Newtown, they're not going to be checked. They're unrecognizable. NRA supported the National Instant Check System on dealers.
That was the reference to 1999 when you testified supporting.
Yeah, we're $1 billion into this system now. It's not fair. It's not accurate. It's not instant. It's not instant. The mental health records are not in the system, and they don't prosecute any of the criminals that they catch. It's a speed bump for the law-abiding. It slows down the law-abiding and does nothing to anybody else.
But why not try to create a system where you could have a better opportunity to trace a gun that was used in a crime, even if it's not 100%. I mean, if you have, because you've used such incendiary language, the idea that there's going to be a federal registry, which does not exist today, on legal gun owners, even though Dick's Sporting Goods and others participate in this.
We've been trying for 20 years, and the NRA is up on the Hill right now trying to get this existing system on retail dealers to work. But here's what they want to do. They want to take this current mess of a system and expand it now to 100 million law-abiding gun owners. Every time a hunter wants to sell a shotgun to another hunter in Kentucky, every time a farmer wants to sell a rifle to another farmer, they want to make them go somewhere. Where are they going to go down? To a Walmart? Is Walmart going to want to see them walk in the door? The local police station, are they going to want to do it? There's going to be a bureaucracy. There's going to be a diversion of police resources.
But isn't that preferable to a big loophole where you have all the 40% of sales, private sales, one-on-one, where you've got no ability to trace it?
Here's the loophole. Society, the HIPAA laws, the mental health laws, the medical records, the Latham lenses, the shooters in Aurora, the shooters in Newtown, they're unrecognizable. They're not going to be in the system. Who is going to be in the system? You and me. And our names are going to be in the system. There is going to be a list created. That list will be abused. Some newspaper will print it all. Somebody will hack it. There will be a registry. The Obama's own Justice Department says they want a registry on this thing.
But you've been negotiating with some on Capitol Hill, like Senator Manchin. Is there any kind of background check you'd be willing to support, or at least not oppose actively, that could allow this to pass?
We want to fix the existing system on retail sales because our people are the ones that are going through it and are getting delayed. It doesn't work. Nobody gets prosecuted. It's completely ineffective. And the NRA wants to do things that makes people safe, which is, and I've been talking about it, I know the media doesn't want to talk about it, is putting security in schools, armed security.
Wayne, you keep saying that. Every time you've been here, we've talked about it, and I'm going to talk about it in a minute, but I just want to nail down this point because I think it's significant. Are you prepared to support something that would have some kind of background check pass Congress?
We are working on a bill right now that will hopefully at least get the records of those adjudicated mentally incompetent and dangerous into the check system that applies on dealers. Most of the states still do not even do that. We need to see if we can get that done. We're looking to get better enforcement of the federal gun laws. We're working on laws to beef up the penalties on straw purchases and illegal trafficking, which we want prosecuted. Look, we're 5 million families. We're 80,000 law enforcement families. We're 11,000 law enforcement trainers. We want to make people safe. That's what the NRA does every day.
You've opposed the assault weapons ban. There will be a vote on this separate from the main bill. Nobody really thinks it's going to pass. But the Vice President and the President are arguing that it should. Here's what Vice President Biden said this week. I'd like you to answer his challenge.
There's not one single thing being proposed, not one, not one, not one, that infringes upon anyone's Second Amendment constitutional right. This is not about anybody's constitutional right to own a weapon. Tell me how it violates anyone's constitutional right to be limited to a clip that holds 10 rounds instead of 30.
And here's why the whole thing doesn't work. It was lied into law 10 years ago. It didn't work. The studies show it didn't work. Anybody that knows anything about firearms knows that the AR-15, which uses a .223 cartridge, is the very low end of the power spectrum of rifle cartridges. Every round that deer hunters use is more powerful. .243, .270, .308. 25-06, 7mm. This whole thing about the fact they're machine guns, they're different, they make bigger holes, they've rapid fire. It's all a lie. Gun owners know that. They may be a victim of the lies, but they know the truth.
But it's interesting. You're saying that it wouldn't work. You're not disagreeing with him when he says it's not an abridgment of the Second Amendment right.
Oh, it is an abridgment of the Second. They're the most commonly owned firearms in America, and it is an absolute abridgment under the Heller case. I mean, let me give you the real sad thing, though. Let me hold up a mirror right now to the whole national news media and the White House. I just got the track data from Syracuse University on enforcement of the federal gun laws. Last time I was here, I brought it from 2011. It just came out from 2012. Do you know where Chicago ranks in terms of enforcement of the federal gun laws? Out of 90 jurisdictions in the country, they ranked 90th. Why doesn't NBC News start with shocking news on Chicago? Of all the jurisdictions in the country, Chicago's dead last on enforcement of the federal gun laws. Why doesn't the National Press Corps, when they're sitting down there with Jay Carney and the president and the vice president, why don't they say, why is Chicago dead last in enforcement of the gun laws against gangs with guns, felons with guns, drug dealers with guns?
And you support those as felonies, being charged as felonies?
Absolutely, and we want them taken off the street. I mean, if you're the president and the vice president and the attorney general, and your job is to enforce these laws against I'm talking about drug dealers, gangs, and felons that are walking around with guns in the street, and you don't do it, you bear some responsibility. It's
Do you think
tragedy.
you can prevail? You think the NRA can prevail in New York? You heard Mayor Bloomberg saying you can bring suits, but it's certainly within the realm of New York State to pass the laws they did. It's constitutional to do so.
The laws they banned are some of the most commonly owned sporting firearms, target shooting firearms, self-defense firearms, and yes, they're protected under Heller, the guns they banned.
You brought up school safety. You were here last time, and when you addressed Newtown, you said that's the key. More armed guards in schools.
Yeah.
South Dakota has passed a law allowing just that. 27 provisions now being undertaken to arm school personnel. Were you right?
90% of school administrators, 90 say that armed security, police officers in schools make those schools safer. Not a mom or dad wants to drop their kid off at school and leave their kids unprotected. Yes, we were right. And we're right that the mental health system needs to be fixed. The civil commitment laws are in a mess. Every police officer knows that. We can't even, as I said before, I've been working for 20 years to get those adjudicated mentally incompetent and dangerous into the National Instant Check System. We're still trying to get that done, and we need enforcement of the federal gun laws. We want to do the real things that make people safe. I mean, what's appalled me about this whole debate is how little it's had to do with making people safe and how much it has to do with this decade agenda to attack the Second Amendment.
Bottom line, will President Obama sign a new set of gun control measures?
I hope we end up signing something that updates the system and gets those mentally incompetent and adjudicated into the system. We force the administration somehow to enforce the federal gun laws. I know they don't want to do it, but they ought to do it. It's their responsibility. That would make people safe. Put programs like Project Exile in every American city, where if you're a drug dealer, a gang member, a felon, and you touch a gun, it's a 100% certainty you're going to be prosecuted and taken off the street. That ought to start tomorrow morning, but it won't do it unless the national media gets on the administration and calls them out for their incredible lack of enforcement of these laws.
All right, we're going to leave it there. Wayne LaPierre, always appreciate you coming on and taking my questions.
Thanks for having me.
Okay. Coming up here.